Meeting's called to order. Let's stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you read the statement of certification of the meeting?
The meeting has been advertised according to sunshine law.
Please call the roll.
Chairman Venero.
Here.
Mr. Conti.
Here.
Mayor Melham is not present. Mr. Vanda.
Here.
Mr. Bove.
Here.
Mr. Graziano is not present. Ms. Guaman is not present. Mr. Novarato is not present. Mr. Zangari is not present. Ms. Edelford. Here. Mr. Guyan.
Here.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Ms. Tubito. Here.
Approval of minutes are not available at this time. We have a bill list. We have a resolution to memorialize. It is PB 2102, 68 William Street, 10-16 Greenwich Street, Block 8602, lots 15 and 18. The applicant was 74 William Street, Belleville LLC. It was the approval to construct a 6-story mixed-use building with commercial on the ground floor and 36 units above and 43 parking spots.
Chairman Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
No part.
Mr. Vanda.
Yes.
Mr. Bove.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Abstain.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
No, it's only 4 votes, so.
So it's not memorialized. New business?
New business?
No business.
This is not
Well,
relevant.
if you'd like, because I guess I started this 2 months ago, I want to bring to the board's attention and to the public's attention what's happened in the last couple of months. In the February meeting, I had, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
I don't think they're working.
This one's working.
Andy,
Hello?
can I just do these adjournments?
Yes, all right, I'm sorry.
Just give me
Rose.
1
Okay,
second.
yeah, sure.
All right, so we have no applications on tonight, is my understanding, and we have 2 adjournments. One is 524 Union Avenue, and one is 41 Clinton Street. Anybody that's in the audience tonight to hear these applications, it's going to be adjourned, and I can't even give you a date exactly when it'll be adjourned to. It'll be the next meeting. We're supposed to tell you on the record what date it's going to be. The next meeting was supposed to be May 12th. You should check with the municipality and you should check with Town Hall about when the next date is going to be, if anybody's here in the audience to hear any of these 2 applications. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So in the February meeting, I had uncovered what I thought was breaking news, that I had evaluated that the planning board may have been, formed illegally and improperly by the mayor. I later learned, after I presented what I knew, that Mr. Sheldon had presented in 2019 the same case. And I was kind of shocked. So what really shocked me was that Mr. Graziano sat at every meeting and Mr. Melham sat at every meeting and never once made mention to the fact that he had changed the way that he was going to seat the new members of the board. We protested that it was illegally done and improperly done, and we shut that meeting down. Mrs. Tubito and Chairman Venero met with the mayor. He wouldn't meet with me. And they decided, because we were waiting for a proper opinion, that we would proceed with the last meeting, even though any decision that this board, which has been improperly seated, has made can be challenged and reversed. And we've known that it's in the law. So we proceeded. We had last month's meeting. Well, since then we've gotten an opinion from really one of the highest regarded planning, zoning, municipal attorneys in the state of New Jersey. He's an author of some of our laws, rules, and ethics, and everything else.
He's a certified expert.
Certified expert. And I'm not going to read from his opinion. It was presented by Mr. Sheldon, again, who deserves a lot of credit. He paid for it himself. And Mr. Cates has concluded that we were right, that somehow suspiciously the old ordinance was placed on the website. In the 2019 ordinance, the mayor claimed that we had competing ordinances. So he puts this old ordinance on the website, and he takes the current ordinance, which we have been operating on since the 90s, and says, well, we have competing language. And they passed an ordinance that night, which basically took away all the language regarding how planning and zoning boards were going to be assembled. In my opinion now, which Mr. Cates didn't touch on, is right now we have no language regarding, now some legal people may say, no, we resort back to the 1990 ordinance, but they did pass an ordinance in 2019, and that's what Mr. Sheldon objected. What really bothers me is that they sat on this planning board for 2 years and never said anything. And another problem that I've had too, and I said it that night in February, is on many occasions with many developers, they're in conflict. They're receiving campaign donations and they don't recuse themselves. And I even asked Mr. Melham last meeting to recuse himself on some zoning changes that he has an interest in. He refuses to recuse himself. So I had also mentioned on 2 occasions, and tonight I brought them with me. So when Mr. Melham was running, remember him sitting in the back the night that we approved Belmont Avenue, he sent me a letter, which I'll make public, basically congratulating me for speaking out against some of the people that weren't in favor of the project. And I think for all the people that spoke out against it will agree, and I think I try to always have respect for your opinions, and I don't publicly speak down to people. I've said that publicly and privately to all of you. I thought that wasn't a bad project, it was a little too big. But I voted for it, I did. I subsequently got another letter in an unmarked envelope. I read it the other night to the council. I figured I'll read it again, and then I'll tell you how things are going. How's your investigation going with the DCA effing asshole? That's what I received. My son actually opened it up because the envelope looked so strange, he opened it up. We laughed about it. I want to assume it came from the same camp. I'm not accusing any one person because I didn't do fingerprint analysis, nor do I care to. But this is the letter that I received. So I reported to Mr. Melham the other day that the investigation is going quite well. The proper, appropriate people have received the documents, and investigations go slowly, but they're in the process. Whether he wins the next election or not, he's got things to worry about, because these aren't the only areas. I could go on for an hour, but that's not the planning board business. So every decision this board's made since 2019 is now called into question. A lot of your hard work, Brian, it could be wiped out. I thought I was discovering something new. Mr. Sheldon had discovered it 2.5 years ago. I wish that it would have been brought to our attention, because I would have probably stood up against it. So at this time, Rose has, is our legal counsel. Like I said last time, I don't see how we can even meet or make decisions, not until the mayor decides what to do with it. We're trying to get before a judge with this at this point because he has no credibility. Rose and Ray sat in a meeting. They asked him to just clean it up, bring it before the council. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. So I would suggest that we suspend all activity once again. And again, we're trying to get somebody with a superior judgment, a judge, to weigh in on this and say, listen, what's our next step here? So, this is where we sit right now. The opinion that Mr. Sheldon had 2.5 years ago, and the opinion that I repeated without knowing that he had previously beat me to the punch, has been in fact agreed to by one of the top lawyers, an expert in the state of New Jersey. It's ironclad. It's ironclad. So Mr. Martino's got problems too, because they know what they've been doing over the last few years with this board. It's inappropriate. it's probably downright illegal. I'm not a lawyer, so I really can't speak to that. But that's the update on what's been happening in the last 2 months since we revealed what we did. And I hand it over to, we even have confusion as to, well, our chairman, who's been chairman for quite a few years, and 20 years on this board, was named in an improper fashion. He was named with a memo letter, just a letter from the mayor saying, well, yeah, he's re-upped for 4 years, which isn't the way it's supposed to be done, which is why he's really, in a way, not speaking tonight. The only 2 members up here are me and Mr. Banda. He has made a disaster of this board. We've taken control of the town. The zoning board has meetings with nothing to talk about. And he's made a disaster of the board, and for what reason, I don't quite understand, because he had the votes he needed in the council, but at this point, it's beyond that. So I hand it back over to our chairman, because I still view him as the chairman, but at this point, we can't hear anything. Even if we did have the 5 members here that were legally assembled, we wouldn't have a quorum, and we wouldn't have a legal board, because the state requires that you have 9 members and 2 alternatives, not 5 members and 6 people that were illegally appointed. So under no condition can I see how we're going to get to a place where in the next few months this board's going to be up and running again. And with an election so close, it really shouldn't even happen. So I hand it back over to Mr. Venero and Mr. Tubito.
Okay, so, yeah, I would just like to say that, when Andy brought this up, there were discussions. I think last meeting I was asked about my conversations with the town attorney. We didn't really see eye to eye. I thought things could be cleared up. He didn't agree with me. And so, I, as the planning board attorney, cannot force the township attorney even to clear something up, since he felt that it was clear enough. However, in light of the expert opinion, and I can tell you personally that I know Mr. Cates. He is a certified expert in land use and zoning. He's contributed to what we call the Bible of zoning. He's been doing it exclusively for over 40 years. I actually learned zoning and land use from him when I first started, became an attorney. And I can even tell you that there are certain judges that even pick his brain about cases that are specific to land use and zoning, because he's an expert in his field, and anybody in New Jersey could tell you that. So in light of this letter that Mr. Sheldon has produced, these are all issues that were brought up by Ray and I in the meeting with the mayor and the town attorney. And I think just in summary, Mr. Cates made it very clear that the last 6 appointments to this board are illegal, completely null and void, which turns out to make this board not a planning board, because we don't have enough legalized people. In my professional opinion, the way to fix this, all that has to be done is take the last 6 people and present them before mayor and council and ask them to ratify it and vote on it. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So let's say mayor and council agree and all vote in favor, then those 6 people that were lastly appointed can come back to the board, they'd be legal, and we could continue. I don't know what's going to happen with the stuff that was voted on prior. There are a lot of things that could happen, and most likely, those cases will probably be sent back to be heard again by a board that is officially assembled in a legalized fashion. And I'm going to tell you, the town attorney does not agree with me. I did say that. I did, bring that up as an issue, was my legal issue with Ray. And I think Ray, he said, if I'm not mistaken, that he didn't agree and thought that they would not rule that way.
Correct.
So, listen, attorneys don't always see eye to eye on things, and you can argue cases in different ways. But now we have this expert opinion who's actually saying that, you know, not only is it not formed properly, it's illegal, it has to be fixed. If it's not fixed, it will go to court, and if it goes to court, there's really no doubt in his mind that it will be sent back. It's not a high bar to reach. I suggest to mayor and council that they just take the last 6 people, bring them before the mayor and council, let them vote on them properly, and if they're all ratified, they can all come back and we could continue. That was my suggestion in the meeting, that is still my suggestion. In light of this letter, I mean, this might as well be, I'm gonna tell you my professional legal opinion, this might as well be a court order. Because if it goes to court, this is exactly the opinion you're gonna get. So that's my suggestion to Mayor. I'm sorry that he's not here, I see he's not here. I would love to speak to him privately maybe and just see if he's willing to do that and speak to the town attorney again. And maybe he is willing to do that, I don't know.
But once again, not to interrupt you, but I'm going
Yeah.
to. So the other night, one of the council members quipped that, 2 of the council people weren't there. I guess they didn't find this important. But one councilwoman, Mrs. Burke-Strumler, her brother passed, and Councilman Rovell's mother-in-law had a medical emergency. They weren't here. Contrary, the board was processed, and they were given this decision 2 days ago. And 2 days later, they chose to go to a political event. Ms. Guaman, the mayor, and Mr. Graziano are at a political event right now. I guess they didn't take this seriously, or they didn't find it important enough to be here, because barring they had medical emergencies in their families, and I hope they didn't, they're at a political rally right now, telling everybody how great they are. I wish some of those people would do a little research and find out, who's behind the curtain pulling the strings and doing things in a way that are damaging to the town. There will be an expense to be paid by the taxpayers of this town to litigate 3 years of decisions by this illegal board that he placed. And I don't recommend that we go to the council, because this council has been bought and paid for. They have 4 votes, they do whatever they want. Most basically, they will approve everybody who are Mr. Melham's hand-picked people, and they will have terms going forward that they shouldn't really have. It's a funny thing that we're about to have an election. If Mr. Melham still controls the council after the election, God bless him. There's a price to pay when you lose an election. But if he loses the election, why should his people go on in perpetuity for the next 4 years when they didn't belong here in the first place? So I will be here vigorously arguing and calling people out personally on the council if they have the nerve to just take this after 3 years and just say, okay, oops, we made a mistake, now we're going to vote them all in. No, that shouldn't be the way it works. Let the new council. We have an election coming up. If Melham ticket wins, Belleville wins, God bless them, do what you want. But if they lose, then they shouldn't have the authority to name a new board. That would include myself, because I would imagine I'm up in June. I won't be re-upped. God bless him. If he doesn't want to do it, fine. But you're up. Maybe if my team wins, they won't re-up you. I think that they should, because I think you're an asset to the board. I really mean that, Brian. We may not always agree, but you're an intelligent young person with a vision. Our vision may not always be the same, but I have the same respect for you that I have for Mr. Sheldon. It's not personal. I said that to the mayor. I'm starting to not believe in your vision so much because I see things going on that I don't like. It's nothing personal. I have respect for him to a certain degree. He's a smart guy, but his ego gets in the way of being a good leader. And that's bad, because if you're not a good leader, then you shouldn't be the leader.
No, it's going to be suspended.
So I'll end it with that. That's my vision. If they dare to vote on it, I'm sure myself and some of the people in the town will be against it, because it shouldn't be handled that way. Again, after the election, let the cards fall where they may. Let the people of the town decide who they want and how they want to go forward. If they want to go forward in this fashion, God bless them. If they don't, then let's reseat the planning board according to new people coming in. It's almost like the Supreme Court justice. They don't want the outgoing president to seat that person, unless he's re-elected, right? Yeah, let the people decide. So that's my last comment on this. I think everybody knows where I stand. No, I'm serious, Brian, I do, I respect you and your
Thank you,
opinions, I do.
All right, just one more thing I want to put on the record, which I've put on the record before, but, Mr. Cates did not really touch on it, I don't think it was presented to him. But I'm going to say that, as a planning board, if we get everything back the way, I guess it should be legally, however that happens, I don't know politically, I'm not talking about an election. Legally, the way to fix this is to ratify it before the mayor and council, whoever the mayor and council is.
Rose, can I ask you one other question?
Yes.
I believe this is a legal question. Which
Yes.
I kind of had for Mr. Cates, but it was too late for him to go back and address this.
Okay.
My problem going forward is that the ordinance they passed in 2019 did away with the language of the 1990 ordinance by which we were governing the town. So at this current time, there is no language regarding how to put the planning board together, because they referred back to 19.1 of the 78 ordinance. But that's null and void, and now you've removed the language of the current ordinance, leaving us with nothing. So I don't even know how they can legally go forward next week or next meeting and say, listen, we're gonna re-adjourn and we're voting everybody in. Where does it say so?
They have to come up with a new ordinance
Right.
that's in line with the present form.
And that would take quite a few weeks to do, wouldn't it?
Sure, it
Yeah,
could,
yeah.
depends on, how long they work on it or how much
We'll
they
get
work
to you,
on it.
we'll get to you.
So, it can be fixed. I'm just saying, legally speaking, this can be fixed with whoever, I'm not gonna get involved in the politics and who's gonna become the mayor and council, but whoever, if it's the present people or new people, if we take the last 6 people and, if that's, united by the board and we ratify them correctly in front of the mayor and council, wherever that is, we can reconvene this board legally. Again, as far as everything that happened before that, we do face litigation. We face possible litigation because there are going to be developers that, have gotten approvals and have gone on, and they're going to all be sent back here as if it never happened. And that's a big deal, for them. That's a huge deal for them, and it's terrible for us, But I don't know exactly what's gonna happen. These are my recommendations. The only thing I would touch on is, and I said it before, that if the board wants to, once we are legally reconvened at some point, if we are, if they want to review bills and approve or disapprove of them, that's fine. The law says you can do that if you want to do it. If you guys decide you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But let's say we reconvene legally and you want to do it. All the bills have to be included. So if you see me, Rose Tubito, I'm here, and I put in a bill, and in that packet, my bill is not in there, and this is what you guys have done before, which doesn't even count anymore, as we know, because the members are not legally ratified. But if you do that, then you're approving bills that are not a complete package, okay? So, for example, like Tom Harrods, he's here, he does work, he puts in a bill, somebody takes the bill out, you guys all, okay, yeah, well, I saw so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and it looks good, and I approve it. That package is not appropriate. You don't have the full bills. You have people that are working, and they're not including it in the package. And that goes back to the business manager, not the mayor, and not the
This
council.
is why I protested, because there's really no way for these members to know what is a complete package. I don't know the ordinance that they're always changing on Mr. Di Lorenzo. Is
Well,
he to
now
be
that-
paid, isn't he?
yeah.
They know
Well-
what Mr. Harris gets, and then, worse than that, we could say, we could vote on the people that are here at this meeting, we see them, we're with them. I don't know what CME's doing for 42 hours or 58 hours. I'm sure they're working, but I have no knowledge of it, so I'm offended to be asked to approve something for which I have no knowledge of, or if somebody's being gypped or somebody's being overpaid, I don't know. So why are you looking for me to approve that? That's for the business, that's for the town manager to do, not for me.
By New Jersey statute, it's a town manager's responsibility. If you guys want to do, it's nothing wrong with reviewing the bills. If you have
Right.
questions, you can ask the town manager. None of that is bad,
Right.
if that's what you want to do. What's wrong and illegal is when there are people working, and just the very first package that ever came before us, after so many years that no packages were coming before us, and that's fine, they wanted to change it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that first package that came before us, my bill was taken out, Corinne's bill was taken out, Frank DiLorenzo's bill was taken out. I noticed it. And then I explained to you guys, if you're gonna, if you guys are gonna be approving bills, you better approve these 3 bills. I mean, you actually see us here, right? So those are the kinds of weird things that were happening with the bill packages. I'm not gonna point fingers and blame anybody, but the business manager in our New Jersey state statute is in control of that in our form of government. So he has to have answers to that, and he didn't really have any answers to that. And after I brought it up, he took my bill and Corinne's bill and put it through payroll and then made an extra accounting step to take it out of the escrow account. That's allowed too. It's nothing illegal about that, as long as it eventually comes out of the escrow account for special meetings. However, I didn't see the reasoning for that. It doesn't matter. It's legal, it can be done. What I noticed is Mr. Frank DiLorenzo's bill wasn't put through payroll and then put through the escrow account like ours. It just was eliminated altogether. If you can't give me a legal substantial reason why you're going to take out somebody's bill, whether it's Frank DiLorenzo, Corinne, me, anybody, Tom, anybody, if you can't come up with a legally substantial reason to exclude it from a packet, first of all, don't give it to the planning board, because I'm going to legally advise you not to vote on it at all, number 1. And number 2, if you can't give a good reason, you better put it back, because there are consequences to that. And I just want to say that I'm sure a lot of people, I don't know if everybody knows, but there was a complaint made about Mr. Frank DiLorenzo. There could be complaints made about Brian, me, Ray, doesn't matter. Complaints are made every day. Not you. Not you, Andy. I'll just pick us. Anyone can make a complaint. Does not mean that it culminates into some kind of legal, criminal action at all whatsoever. Anyone has the right to make that, complaint, and I actually have knowledge, and I'm privy to certain knowledge about certain investigations. And I happen to know that complaint that was made, even if I didn't have any privy information, just as an attorney looking at the complaint of one of our people and looking at what was complained about, what was produced, there was nothing illegal that happened. Really, the only illegal thing that happened was with the people that made the complaint, not with the person they complained about. So I'm going to leave it at that. And it's not a personal thing, like Frank can take care of himself. I can take care of myself. Corinne over there, she can take care of herself. But when they try to, when people are trying to bully her around while she's actually doing work and not paying her, taking bills out and playing with it, I take offense to that. Okay, because, she's a young girl and she's working, and that's not right. Okay? Because, that's where I have a very,
And just for the record, the money comes out of the escrow account of the developer, the town's not paying it.
yeah.
So any money that pays for the professionals, it comes out of the escrow account for the developer. So it's not even the town's money per se. It's the developer's money to pay to our professionals.
If a developer can't
And the developer
afford,
gets a copy of the bill, so if there was,
Yeah.
they can
and they
test
can
it.
question it.
And
They
they
can
do
question
question it, sometimes they do question it.
They can question and say how come this was, this invoice was put in, and how come they did an extra review, or how come so-and-so did X, Y, and Z. Perfectly normal. If you're a developer that can't afford to put in money into an escrow account, then you can't afford to develop. That's not our issue. That's the developer's issue. That's the reason that we have escrow accounts. So we can't, as the planning board, I don't care what the mayor and council, who is the mayor and council, who is the business administrator. As the planning board attorney, this is what is legal, and this is what I have to counsel. It's my duty to explain that to you. So if you take on that responsibility, even though I've told you that and put it on the record, then legally it's on you.
And I would say once again, that it's gonna cost the taxpayers money, because there's gonna be litigation over this.
There's gonna be.
Our zoning
yeah,
official was
a lot.
accused of stealing money and double billing. It was said publicly at council meeting. They came before us with the bills and said that he was costing the taxpayers money when he was legally billing the developers for the time he put on, and we do a lot of special meetings for these developers. We meet on all different days and nights. And Corinne, Rose, everybody's available. But at the time of COVID, they were Zoom meetings. So it was in the ordinance that Mr. Di Lorenzo should be paid. Again, if you want to start looking at the ordinances and what the mayor said, you're going to find, once again, just like this, I told you the other night, you were wrong. We had a top-notch attorney say you're wrong. And you know what's going to happen? We're going to get sued because they defamed our zoning official, and it's going to cost us money, and guess what? They're going to find out that the mayor was wrong. They set him up for some nefarious deal, because I'm going to tell you why. I don't want to get political.
Yeah,
Because Mr. Di Lorenzo's in their way. Because he's the first official that the developers have to come to. And the mayor meets privately with the developers when Mr. Di Lorenzo's supposed to be meeting with the developers. That's the way the law wants it, so that we don't have politicians meeting with developers. But, he doesn't play ball with them, so to speak, so they've gone after him. And that's the truth of the matter. And that's why they presented us with the bills, with his bills excluded. It's another shell game. I hope the taxpayers figure it out.
I don't know about personally why or why,
I'll
I'm
go
just
on
saying
the limit.
legally.
I'll go on the limit.
Okay, I'm just saying
I'll be right
legally
again.
speaking, whether it's Mr. Di Lorenzo or anybody else, if you have a packet and clearly it's not included, you should not be voting on it. Because you're not voting on a complete and true package. You're saying, okay, this special meeting, this is the package, and yet it's approved, but really, you're missing bills. So you're not doing it, you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. And I'm gonna say one more thing. When there's a complaint to the Attorney General's office and there's nothing that happened, like, if you can't give me, if I get accused of something, but then I don't get arrested, indicted, brought to court in any way, shape, or form, then guess what? I didn't do anything wrong. There could be a complaint against me, but if you don't see any of that action happening, that means I didn't do anything wrong. And they do not necessarily have to tell you that. The Attorney General's office is not required to give you some kind of letter to say, we got a complaint and now we're done with the complaint. They just have a duty to investigate it. If they find something, then they move forward in a legal fashion. When they don't move forward, you could safely say there was nothing to move forward on. But anyone can make a complaint. So to take it further and say there was a complaint made by one of our people that works with the planning board, and take it a step further and say, oh, they're indicted, they're going to go to jail, they got arrested, that's defamation of character. And as an attorney, I don't care about the politics. I'm not here for the politics. I'm here for the planning board. And I'm going to do my duty, and I told the mayor that he's defaming people and he needs to stop, especially here, because he did it here. So, so I'm just going to add that, because Mr. Cates, I don't think it was presented to him, but I'm 100% sure he would agree with me and add another page here. And any judge would agree with this and what I just told you too.
I would just like to add something. I've been on this board for over 20 years. I served under 4 different mayors, and I always felt I wasn't political. I wasn't for anybody or against anybody. I was here to do what's best for the town of Belleville. So in February, when it was presented to us that there might have been a problem with the appointments and we were acting illegally, I suspended the meeting. Me and Rose, like she said, we met with the town attorney, Mr. Martino, and the mayor. We tried to resolve this. Rose had her opinion, which I felt was clear and undeniable. Mr. Martino didn't believe her opinion, and I was at the point, well, I'm not an attorney, whose decision do we follow? So I decided to have it the next meeting. And now I received a copy of Mr. Cates' report. I didn't know who Mr. Cates was until this morning. I Googled him. I found out he like the Cox book that we refer to for our decisions. He wrote the book. He was a professor at Rutgers. He's on the technical review board of the League of Municipalities. I think he's like they say, one of the most trusted land use attorneys in the state of New Jersey. So when this letter was presented to me this morning and I read through it thoroughly, I felt like this was clear evidence that our board, for whatever reason, was not appointed legally. So I feel that tonight's meeting, even though myself was appointed illegally or improperly, I just want to state for the record that after reviewing this review from this attorney, that we should not proceed any more cases. Like Mr. Tubito said, I think everything we've voted on is now subject to review and scrutiny, and it would only cause, I think, a more black eye for the town of Belleville for us to proceed. When it was first presented to, I was a little, let's see, what's the correct word? The timing of it, I thought might have been political, but the more I looked into it, I found a letter from, I believe it was 2019, when Councilwoman Burke presented an inquiry to Martino saying that, you know, she was on the board, Councilwoman, a number of years, and it was always the council's decision, not the mayor, and Mr. Martino advised her that she was wrong, and the present way of the mayor appointing people by memo was correct. So that was kind of swept under the rug in 2019. And I just want to state for the record, after reviewing Mr. Cates' report, who, like I said, I didn't know before today, but I did some research all day on him, and he's one of the most trusted land use attorneys in the state of New Jersey. So I respect his opinion. Like I said, when me and Rose met with Martino, me as a layperson, what do I do? Who do I believe? But I think this is, you can't dispute Mr. Cates, and I think we need to suspend our meetings until this is resolved properly.
I agree, and from a legal standpoint, I mean, these are all the issues that we brought up to the mayor and town attorney, and these are the things that I said, and, you know, as I said, I couldn't physically force him or even legally force him to ratify anything, but now that we have an expert opinion, and I'm telling you, it's just as good as a court order, you know, stating the same thing. From a legal standpoint, there will be no more planning board meetings at all until the members are ratified correctly. And like I said, I was going to privately just ask the mayor if, you know, maybe he changed his mind. I don't know if he saw the letter. Try to do it amicably. I see he's not here, so I don't know. I know before, you know, they weren't. I don't know if it's the mayor or Mr. Martino or whatever. I don't know. But all I know is they weren't willing to do it. Maybe they are willing to do it now. I don't know. So we can look into that a little bit. But until then, until it's ratified, we will not be meeting. Unfortunately, I hate to say that. This is like the first time in my career that I've ever had to do this. It's really like it's unfortunate. Because I've never seen this before. There's things that can be fixed, amended all the time. That things happen all the time. We amend ordinances, we fix problems, and the business of the township goes on. We cannot continue. So, until further notice, all meetings will be suspended.
Anybody else? Any other council members of the board? Want to add anything?
You want to let the public speak?
Mr. Sheldon, you paid for this report, do you have something you want to
A
say?
couple comments. Rose mentioned a moment ago she wasn't sure if Mr. Melham has seen the report. In fact, and Mr. Conti can confirm this, Tuesday night I returned the favor to them, and this time around I served them. I gave Mr. Melham and Mr. Martino and all the other members of the council copies of the Cates report, so there's no way they can deny at this stage that they haven't seen it. I just wanted to also correct a couple of dates. As usual, Mr. Conti's recital of the history is spot on, but there were just two dates I just wanted to confirm for the record. This ultra vires usurpation of planning board authority officially commenced on part of Melham and Martino on July 9th, 2019. It was almost a year later, it was in June of 2020, that they tried to do damage control when they realized the predicament they had caused under the darkness of COVID. Remember, in 2020, they were meeting here, but the public was kept out of the chamber. But in June of 2020, they introduced an ordinance, and then later in the month passed it, which stripped Chapter 2, Section 8 of the Administrative Code. That had the correct appointment language for the planning board. That was the stuff that was consistent with the Faulkner Act and Municipal Land Use Law, but realizing at that stage that they had the two competing languages in our local code, the old 19-1 from the 1970s, which was completely irrelevant, outdated, and meaningless, and knowing that they still had 2.8 in, which was the correct legal language, once again, they conspired with us kept away from this chamber to strip out willful intent, undeniably. They knew they were wrong, but they were trying to cover their tracks at that point, so they stripped 2.8 out of the administrative code so that the only 19.1, which has no relevance, no application to our form of government, remained. So it just goes to show you that all along they've known what they were doing, Mr. Melham and Mr. Martino, and I have had numerous discussions with Mr. Cates and a couple of other attorneys I'm not going to name here, but they have consistently said that this goes far beyond misinterpretation of law or simple ethics violations, that this is tantamount to criminal conspiracy and criminal fraud. And if you don't believe me, I just want to tell you, in the last 48 hours, I have now been contacted by multiple authorities in the state. I'm not going to give names for obvious reasons, but people who not only have the power to disbar attorneys, but also to put people in prison. And they've asked me for copies of Mr. Cates' report and all the other details. I've shared some of this with Mr. Tubito, Mr. Conti. They've seen the table of all the documentary evidence. State authorities asked me not only for that information, but there's many other things they asked me for as well. So while Mr. Melham and Mr. Martino may not be here tonight, I'm sure their surrogates will inform them in very short order. Rest assured that the state has both of them in their crosshairs and laser focus. So there's going to be a lot happening. And also I just want to say that what Mr. Cates has done for us is not the end of this process. I've already discussed with Mr. Cates the next step. That next step being petitioning the Superior Court of New Jersey for injunctive relief, an emergency stay to immediately stop all planning board projects that may be underway right now and move to invalidate everything that you've approved since 2019. And while it may be a far stretch, there is also the possibility that a judge could decree that anything that you approved since 2019 and has already been built, well, that was never legally done. So bring in the bulldozers and take the building down. There's a lot of case law where this has happened in other instances. And as an example of how things like this can play out, I point out what happened with the zoning board 10 years ago. The zoning board heard the Coptic church case. They approved it. It was a parking garage and building expansion. The case was appealed, and it was discovered upon appeal that proper noticing hadn't been performed. Just not everyone within a 200-foot radius had been properly informed. And what did the judge do? The judge threw out the entire application and told them start all over again. And it took 10 years for the Coptic church to come back. And guess what? They came back before you while you were illegally constituted. So they may have to wait another 10 years before they break ground. So just be cautious. You're doing the right thing tonight by suspending this planning board. There's going to be a heck of a lot of legal activity surrounding this in the weeks and months to come. Maybe before Christmas we'll reconvene with the next round of planning board hearings. That's it for tonight.
Have a nice Christmas.
Thank you.
Mr. Frantantoni?
Yeah, I don't know if you're ready for a compliment from me, but I want to thank you for finally acknowledging the citizens are correct. And I especially want to thank Mr. Conti for having the courage to come forward. And just one thing I want to correct, Mr. Venero, not the first time you heard from Mr. Cates. I and a few others had to dig into our pockets and give you a Cates decision on the Ms. Guaman appointment. She was appointed illegally. You wouldn't listen to us, and in all due respect, Mr. Tubito, you countered me that I was wrong. We had to pay Mr. Cates for a decision back then. I handed it to you right here in this meeting, that decision, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
If I could just respond to that. not to make any excuses, but I don't think I was looking, to be very frank, at the correct ordinance, not unknowingly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I acknowledge that, that's
So,
why I said I appreciate.
If I would have known then what I know now, I would have recognized that that really wasn't a correct, ordinance for Belleville at the time.
Okay, and I
But they
appreciate
did
your
correct it.
acknowledging and
I know the
admitting to
mayor,
that.
corrected it shortly thereafter. He did, change her class membership, and then, it was, it was a moot point. But
And
this
I,
is completely different.
While I don't have a title after my name, when you come to these meetings for 54 years, I think you learn something.
That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Mr. Trost.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment.
I'm sorry, your name, please?
Mario, M-A-R-I-O, D-R-O-Z-E.
Thank you.
Yeah, just want to make a comment, Rose, what you said about rectifying the problem. I don't think making new appointments in this short period of time is going to rectify the problem. I think more what Mr. Sheldon said here, I think this is more of a, to me, what he just said, sounds more criminal matter to me. So I don't think you should be rushing into replacing them without a thorough investigation from the state. That should come first, before new appointments.
Yeah, I'm just saying, not from a criminal, perspective.
No, I know, but you kept saying, repeating it, so I want myself, don't worry about that. What he just said makes a lot more sense.
If it turns out.
I think, no, not, it shouldn't turn. I think it should be sanctioned also by you people up there. It should be looked into. I mean, this can't just walk away.
We can't sanction anybody.
I mean, we've been complaining for years, all of us, yes, questioning.
Well, Mario, is it Mario? Normally, I would say normally, in other townships, if there are issues with ordinances, things that maybe not are exactly clear, usually we work together. The board,
No, I know.
the board attorney works together with the township attorney, and, we get together and.
I sat there for 6 years on that planning board, I know.
Yeah, so, and that's the normal way. We say, okay, well, maybe it wasn't clear, maybe it was an oversight, not a big deal. Let's change the ordinance, let's clean it up, let's do the right things, and we move on. I don't know about criminal intent.
Well,
I mean,
based on
if
what you
there
said,
is
it sounds like
criminal
criminal to
intent,
me.
I wouldn't know
Yeah.
if it was done unknowingly.
I don't know
If
either,
it was
but-
done criminally.
Oh, I'm just telling you
Yeah.
what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if just in a normal sense and in an administrative sense, it could be fixed, I wasn't able to do it now, I thought maybe we would be able to do it. If there's other criminal issues behind all of, I don't know, I'm sure they'll come out and we'll take it from there.
July 31st, 1990. I sat on the board. I was councilman at large. I remember that, and I just happened to have that ordinance home for some strange reason. It was in a yellow-looking paper. It looked odd, and sure enough, I found it. When I sat on the council, we took office July 1st, 1990. We ratified it July 31st. We just had a holdover of the old board for 1 year. I think it's in that report. 1999, we changed it where all the board members and the planning board had to get education because I got tired of people sitting on the board and not knowing how to read a blueprint. And then in 2003, it was changed again, the language, and then it goes on and on. So I was initially from 1990, during the change of government here, from the council manager, form of government. So I am quite familiar with it. That's why I'm saying, just shouldn't walk away.
Yeah. It's a big deal to change the form of government.
No. Vinny and I know.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, wait 10 years for it.
Yeah, and it's a big deal, and that's why they limit the amount of times you can do it. Because it's so different, and let's say mayor and commissioners, the mayor has a lot more powers, and things are done completely different.
No, I know that Vinny knows it under commission form of government, and I know it under council manager. We understand clearly what he's
It's
saying,
like
we know that.
it's like night and day.
Right.
So, if there's an ordinance out there that, is being represented as proper,
But
and
that
it's
was
not,
the original one from 1990.
then,
Okay.
we'll see what happens.
Okay.
We'll see.
Mr. Fleischman?
Sure. Just three very brief things. Frank Fleischman, editor of Belleville Watch. Through the chair, Mr. Tubito, I just wanted to ask you, the memorialization of the resolution failed today. So does that particularly mean that the development that was voted on is basically not to be acted on at this time?
Can't go forward.
Okay, okay. Now, last meeting, this body did two things. It voted to give the designation of a condemnation area in need of redevelopment to the Belleville Industrial Center, and you also approved the zoning changes, or recommended that, the zoning changes be put through. Is that all kaput now as well, in light of Mr. Cates'
Good question.
opinion?
I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure if, if I had it, I'll give you like a hypothetical case where I've seen that become null and void. I'm not sure in this particular case. I guess we're gonna, if Mr. Sheldon's saying a lot of things I'm not sure about, they're gonna be investigated, I guess things will come out and we'll figure it out. It's not just I guess it's not just a basic administrative situation, so I think we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, Mr. Conti, Belleville owes you a huge debt of gratitude for bringing this
I
up.
give it all to Mr. Sheldon.
It really
because
did, and also
he was
Mr.
on
Sheldon.
2.5 years before I even
Yeah,
imagined.
because Mr. Sheldon, Mr. Frantantoni, Mr. Draws,
Yeah.
also myself, have been bringing this up for 2 years now, and now we actually see, a legal opinion that basically, concurs with what we've said all this time, so.
I said
Thank you.
to Mr. Sheldon, and I said it probably, there's only a handful of people that show up at every meeting. And you guys show up at the Board of Ed meetings, show up at the council meetings, you show planning and zoning. You put in more time than some of the officials in this town. And that's why I always spoke with you respectfully, even though we've disagreed. You know we've disagreed on some of these votes that I've taken in the affirmative that you were against. This is what forces good government. And if we can't have good government in a local town of 35,000 people, forget about on the national level. That's so polluted and convoluted, we can't even imagine it. But right here in this town, it's only a handful of you ladies and gentlemen that come to all these meetings. And that's why I always respected you, because you're keeping an eye on everybody, and that's what all towns need. So thank you guys for showing up.
We pulled 3, 4 troublemakers the other day.
Yeah, well, listen, God bless you for showing up.
Anybody else in the public have something they'd like to say? If not, we'll close the public portion. And does anybody want to make a motion to close the meeting?
Make a motion.
Second. Meeting is adjourned.